Aloha and welcome to a League of Extraordinary Couples. I am just tickled beyond measure today to be interviewing a delightfully fun couple, a couple who often hear, gosh, I wish I had a relationship like you. And in my chat with them the other day, I can see why. Today, I'm interviewing for their first time together on film, Terri and Charlie Britt, and they represent an enlightened approach to relationships. Terri is the author of, it's called The Enlightened Mom. Is that correct, Terri?
That's correct.
Yeah, The Enlightened Mom. And she has this wonderful, as the developer, the founder of the Women's Leaders of Love Global Community. I hope I got that. Women Leader of Love Global Community.
Yeah, Women of Love Global Community, yes.
Yes. I want to make sure I get the title right. And just at all around good vibes as a former Miss USA in holding that distinguished title, that beauty still shines from within. And I can sense it across the miles. You're joining us from your wonderful home in the mountains of northern Georgia, where you have this great, what's it called, Charlie? JumpinGoat Coffee Roasters?
Coffee Roasters, correct.
Yeah.
It's a great company to own because it's a legal drug you can sell because it's clean.
I love it. So thank you both for carving some time out of your busy, engaged life to join us to help spread the word that these extraordinary relationships are indeed possible. And so we're going to dive deep into your personal relationship. I'm going to give you a moment because the camera goes on whoever's speaking. If you would like to say hello to our audience before I ask the questions.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
We're so glad to be here. And thank you, Amy Elizabeth, for this opportunity.
And by the way, I'm Charlie. I'm Charlie, and that's Terri.
Oh, right. Get the names right.
Although he has more estrogen than I do. He's one of the sweetest, sensitive, most Renaissance-like man. You know how we women want a Renaissance-like man? That is so sweet and sensitive, yet manly, and he'll take care of you and love you. And I am a blessed girl, so he's my Renaissance man.
Lovely. Well, let's go into that that sort of lead in terms of the quality of your relationship by painting a picture, if we could, of a landscape. If you were to describe the quality of your relationship, the picture of your relationship with a landscape, how would you each respond to that? I'm very, very curious.
You want to go first?
I'll let you go first. Beauty before age.
Oh, so for me, it's not perfect. You know, you tend to think, oh, a great relationship is perfect and everything is easy. And I don't look at that way for us. I look at it as, here I am, here's Charlie, and we come together with the intention that we're growing together. And so growing and expansion is not always easy for those of you who are watching, you know that, right? And so for me, the landscape is a bunch of hills, beautiful greenery, lots of flowers, and a lot of cow poop in the middle that you try to avoid stepping into, but you get into it sometimes because you can't help it, and that's life. But it's about what you do with it and the intention. And for us, the intention is always coming back to unconditional love for ourselves and for each other. So what about you, baby doll?
Well, I think I described it previously as maybe a path or a walkway up to the top of the mountain. And as we all want to do in our relationships, we aspire to reach the top. We have this just amazing view, this amazing place you are as a relationship, as a couple. But on the way, again, to me, what sticks out the most in a relationship that makes it maybe that walk up the mountain or looking at the rocks you walk over, the path isn't always clear. It's there may be briars, you may slip a little bit. You may need to sit down and rest because you're wore out. You've had a long day discussing something. But it really comes back to understanding that, we are individuals and we have been raised by parents who have been, unbeknownst to all of us, and always try to instill their path on us. And sometimes that can be difficult because, there are things that they were raised by their parents, which make it difficult for them. And so in reality, I think an enlightened relationship is one that, starts out by understanding that your life has been influenced by how you were raised. However, what are you going to do? Are you going to stay in that? Or are you going to make a conscious decision to heal that or walk through that and let your relationship thrive on its own, not by previous influences?
Mm-hmm.
Can I share something with you that was so cool on our first date, our first real date? So we're in his truck. We were living in Florida. We're going up to the mountains, or going up to Alabama, as he had a farm up there. And we're talking. I had been teaching relationship classes and healing for a long time. I didn't know much about him. Again, this was our first real date. And as we're talking, and he says, something about your childhood programming affects you in your relationships now. And I'm sitting there going, who is this man? He was a cookie dough salesman at that time. He had a franchise for fundraising in schools for cookie dough. Had a big barn in Alabama that held 2 tractor trailer loads of cookie dough. And he's sitting there talking about childhood programming and relationships. And I'm thinking, who is this man? I have to pay attention, because it's like, have you been taking my classes? And they didn't know it, because we didn't even know each other. But he came with that, his background in school with psychology. So he did have a strong understanding of that, which was so amazing. And I think having that understanding, and what he just said so profoundly, is key to looking at those, the landscape as you described, and understanding that we're going to have our crap, and we have to be willing to clean it together and walk through it together.
Right. Well, I so love what you're both saying, because it is that both and. It's the beauty of the hills and the pasture and making our way up, and also the trials and the tribulations along the way, the cow shit, which essentially is the fertilizer, right, to help more things grow. So we don't.
I'm so glad you said cow shit. I wanted to say cow shit, but I said cow poop. But
did I?
I was being nice. Being nice, right?
Right. Great. Well, let's go into that in terms of, if you were to distill your relationship down to its very essence. And I know that might be hard to do. It sounds like, there are so many different facets to an enlightened relationship. But if for each of you, if you were to distill it down to what matters most, how would you each respond to that?
You go first.
I'm gonna let you go first. I probably need a second.
What matters most for me is the commitment, because as we both talked about, we know that there's going to be crap, and it's so many people stay in the blame game. So many people point fingers and say, you're making me unhappy, you're doing this, you're doing that. And we are both committed to taking responsibility for our own lives and for being fully authentic. I think that would be the second part of this, is to be fully authentic. When I first started hanging out with Charlie, he said, I was married for 17 years and I tried to be the perfect husband, and then my wife killed herself. He says, now what I know is I can only be me. And I was like, yay! It was just the perfect answer, right? So the authenticity and the commitment to the authenticity is, and no blame, is what is so huge for me.
Yeah, I've got probably a little different perspective on that. And what it's been for me is, it's been extremely important for me, is that in a relationship, I think we talked about this a little bit, when you start dating, you do all these things, you're going to put on the best front you can. You don't want them to know all the crap in your closet. You don't want your potential spouse or date or whatever to know those kind of things. But what I have found for me, the kindling to our relationship, is that Terri loves me for who I am. I don't have to perform for her love. I don't have to. I can be real. I can cry. I can get mad. I can do stupid things. I can make mistakes. And I think that has been the most amazing thing for me in our relationship is the being allowed to be who I am and not having to perform and feel you have to perform for that love or that relationship.
Yeah. That is so exquisitely poignant that I would love to take a moment and just reflect back what I've just heard you both say, because this is a model for me of inspiring me to show up more fully in my own relationship, to love up my sweetie husband for who he is and not the potential of who I think he could or should be, and just that softening. And you two are perfect for this online show because you are an extraordinary couple. And you come from this background of, selling cookie dough and, Miss USA. And it wasn't as though you both set out to study what does it take to be relationship masters. And yet, Terri, I hear, with your spiritual work and your energy work and your coaching throughout the years, you've learned more of that. But when you came upon Charlie, it was, after your own story, which we may get into, but that sense of, who is this man? Has he been studying this? Has he been listening to my classes? But it's part of who he is in that authentic self. And so I really wanted to take a moment, with your permission, to highlight that, because to me, that's what speaks volumes, that you don't have to be a relationship master to get this. You don't have to, go to all the workshops or whatnot. And Charlie, when we were talking the other day and you said you had pulled your angel card, and then we were talking about, is the Super Bowl timing going to interfere with our interview timing? And you're like, that, I pull my angel card. I do this. I don't need to watch the professional sports online. It's like breaking out of the box and the mold of who I think what historically has been modeled for me by my parents. And it was so astute of you to bring that up, because that's the basis that I think a lot of people bump up against, is how much of an influence the unlived lives of our parents have on us, their own views of the world have on us. And to be able to recognize that and say, you know what, I am me, and I can do me 100%. So I hope I did a good mirror of both of you. Was that a good summary?
It was wonderful. Thank you.
I just want to add one tidbit there, because
Please.
I think it's really, really important in a relationship. And what happened, for me, like in my late wife's marriage, I kept trying to perform. I kept trying to make her happy. I kept trying to do all these things. What I will say is that this is going to happen. It's not if it's going to happen or when it's going to happen. It is going to happen. If you stay in a relationship and you're performing for that love, there will come a day when you build up resentment. Mm-hmm. And that resentment is the crack in the relationship. And that's when the crack starts becoming wider and wider and wider. And you can't stay in a relationship being somebody you're not for the rest of your relationship. It just will not work. I believe that with all my heart.
Right.
And I couldn't agree more. And for me, in my first marriage, he died, and then Charlie came into my life, but I had that resentment. I had the blame. I was the angry mom. And that's what got me on this path, is because I couldn't stand myself. I mean, for anybody who's watching this saying, oh, well, you guys seem so happy and you have everything going for you. No, I was so shut down. I was angry all of the time because I denied myself. I wasn't being fully authentic. I was performing all of the time for my family, for my kids. And then I was expecting I was expecting my kids to perform. That just made me an angrier mom, because I knew it wasn't true. My soul knew it wasn't true. But my ego said, this is what you have to do. And I finally said, no more. I have to be unconditional love, which is what we're really talking about here. When you say no more performing, you're saying I'm taking a stand for loving myself unconditionally, and I'm going to love the people around me unconditionally as well. And I think that's key here.
Yeah, that's absolutely key. That's a beautiful way to bring us back to that essence of unconditional love. So what I'm really hearing is the commitment is so important, and that coming back to unconditional love. And you both are sharing a bit about your previous marriages, and they both ended in a way where how you showed up in that relationship, it didn't pan out. It didn't get you where you wanted to go. And you had this fresh opportunity with each other to create a new reality. So it's a beautiful story. So when those piles of cow poop show up, when the briars or the big impediments, I guess they're called, on the trail up the top of the mountain, when they show up, in other words, the negativity, the conflict, how do you work with it? How do you help dissolve it in your personal relationship?
You want to go first? You want me to go
Why don't
first?
you go first?
He likes me to go first so he can think longer.
Mhm.
For me, as a spiritual coach, what I've learned over all of this is that, of the last 20 years of doing this, is that it's all about moving into alignment, okay? And that every person that is in my life is in spiritual agreement to be in this relationship with me as I am with them. And so, like I was talking about earlier with blame and judgment and negativity, resentment, when I go to those places, that tells me that I'm out of alignment, that I am hurting, that I am in separation. The little girl inside of me is in pain, and I'm wanting to blame someone else for my unhappiness. So the first thing I do is know that it's my responsibility to clean up the crap. Okay, I have to clean up my crap. If I'm reacting to him negatively, I have to clean up my crap. And then I think the second thing would be is to have compassion for myself, because if I'm in the crap, that means something's hurting. That's something hurting inside of me. So I got to go in and I talk to the little girl inside of me and say, what's hurting? What's going on? What's the belief that's holding, that you're holding on to, that is being mirrored to you in this situation? Because I see everything as a mirror. Mm-hmm. And so by doing that, I'm in gratitude for no matter what happens in our relationship, I'm always in gratitude, because I know I'm moving deeper into unconditional love. I'm moving into alignment with the way I was created. And so just knowing that, even in the worst of times, I'm always sitting in gratitude for the part he's playing. And just by doing that, you switch from victim mentality to empowerment mentality. Mm-hmm. And that is where you become an empowered couple, right? If both of you are taking that attitude. So we both, I mean, our whole family, if we're dealing with something, we're looking at what's the gift? What am I needing to heal within myself? Because if you're loving yourself, you're going to be in neutrality to the people around you. They can be doing something awful, and you're going to look at them and say, oh, they're in their pain. They're hurting, right? And so for me, it's recognizing that we're all hurting. We all have our past wounds, as Charlie so beautifully said earlier. We all have our past stuff that we were brought up with. And so our goal is to clean it up. And that's how, I mean, that's for me, what I do is there's something that you see. I mean, I know we both kind of practice this. So do you see it from a different perspective in any way?
I do, actually. I'm still in graduate school. I am still a vase in the kiln to get fired and to become a better product.
No, you are the perfect product.
That's a hard one for me. I would say it's probably where I fall short in our relationship, much more so than Terri. She's so right on when I can get angry. She doesn't get lit up near as quick as I do. So I am a work in progress.
We all are.
And, but I will say the tools that she's using and the things that I've learned from her have, I made it through the 4-year degree. Now I went through my master's. Now I'm in graduate, and hopefully this doctorate degree will get me there. And so, but it is, it is a work in progress, because we all have a different starting point. My goodness, you have 3 kids, all of them are totally different, and they've been through the same boot camp. They're all totally different. So as a starting point in our relationships that are always different, our path of how you deal with some of these things are going to be, they're not always going to be even kilter. She's much more evolved than me. And I can say that honestly. I will say this though, I want to get there. And I think you got to have a relationship where you both want to get there. And I think that's a big part of it.
And what's interesting for me, Amy, Elizabeth, is that he says that, but he is one of the most kind and joyful people I've ever known. And yeah, we have our crap we're dealing with, right? We all do. We're working through our egos. We're working through being human. And, and he says, he's evolving. We're all evolving. I mean, we all are growing. And so what I love about it is that he's committed to it. And I think if I could give anybody a gift, is to understand that if you'll just make that commitment to being in that relationship and being fully authentic. And for me, it's about putting God first, because if I'm honoring and loving the way I was created, I'm putting God first. I think the old family paradigm, the old couple marriage family, paradigm was loving means deny yourself. Being loving means denying yourself. But then you separate from who you are, and now you're blaming the people around you. So our old way of being, family, marriage, relationships, is not the loving, kind way. The loving, kind way is when you commit to unconditional love. And that means being authentic. That means being, you fully, expressing your feelings, saying your wants and needs, sharing your fears, getting real. I mean, he is one of the most real people I've ever known. And I love that. I'm so blessed because he's willing to share that with me. And so many men in our world have to swallow up and say, no, I have to be Mr. Tough Guy. No. If you want to give the woman, the partner in your life, the greatest gift, be a Renaissance man. Right?
Yeah.
And that goes for women too, because a lot of women, I was that woman who was really strong and had my wall around me, and I was going to be independent and do everything. And I had to learn to get soft. I had to learn to receive. And I think that's what he's learning too right now. We're both learning it, but I think that's his big lesson right now, is really learning to receive my, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Did you want to add something to that, Charlie?
No, I'm good.
Well, I just share one last little thought.
Sure.
If you're okay with this. A couple of years ago, he had been pulling his angel cards, and he kept pulling soulmate. And he was like, what's going on? I keep pulling soulmate because it says your soulmate's coming. He goes, but you're my soulmate, right? How can this be? And so he comes down one day, we're sitting here on this couch, and he says, I get it now. He said, I always knew you loved me. He says, but until you taught me to love myself, I couldn't receive your love. And now and that is the gift we give our partners when we say, I'm going to be fully authentic, and I'm going to ask you to do too. Because when you take that stand, you are being open. Your heart opens up, and you're open to receive each other's love and give more love. And I think that's what makes our relationship truly unique, is people can feel the heart connection. They can feel, and just being in that authenticity, you can see the playfulness we have and the joy, the passion. I mean, it is so awesome to be in a relationship that we have this kind of abundance, whatever's going on in our work world or whatever, we have that. And that is so cool.
Yeah. It is just so evident. I mean, I'm just soaking it up. It's, as I said to you the other day, it's like my fingers are on the pulse of the space between you. And it is just boom, that lub dub of the heartbeat of as I like to refer to it for myself, tenderizing the heart, allowing these life experiences to just tenderize me, to allow that vulnerability to open up, to create greater safety so that my husband can open up and come toward me. So Terri, I just really want to reflect. I see how amazing Charlie is. And to me, that speaks volumes of who you are, to allow yourself to be contained and expansive all at the same time, that both and, to allow him to come forward. And it's beautiful. I am just thrilled to have you both on in this interview. So thank you.
Thank you so much for saying that, because in my with my late husband that I was married, we were both married for 17 years, and then our spouses died. She took her life, but mine died of a heart attack. And I used to feel a little bit competitive with him, because I felt like he always was the one stepping out in front. If you can imagine, I was a former Miss USA, but I felt like I was his shadow. And then as I gave myself permission to step out of the shadows and be more of who I am, it became easier for me to want to lift my partner up, because there was no sense of competition or needing to be seen and not feeling like I was being seen, heard, and valued. As I gave myself permission to be that, I want him to shine. I want our kids to shine, right? We want that. When you're allowing yourself to be all that you are and be authentic, you want that for them. So I really appreciate you acknowledging about letting him come in space, because he's my partner, right? I mean, we're soulmates, and so we're, two halves of the whole, and I want him to be all that he's here to be. And I believe this is part of it. So I want to say thank you for letting us have this voice today, because I really feel that this is something that we're going to do more and more of.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm honored to have the first first dibs at it. And as you were just saying that, Terri, I just got chills all over. We call it chicken skin here in Hawaii. It's just like that. What you said, I needed to hear, because I'm stepping more fully into my career, about to publish my first book. I'm going to Hardcore Leadership. I'm on the edge of like stepping into my bigness. And my husband has moments in his vulnerability of saying, wow, cheapers, I'm afraid you might leave me behind. And I'm saying, no, honey, come on. I want, whatever I can do to help you shine. And so to allow space. And gosh, Charlie, I hear you. I am not as evolved as I would love to be in lessening my reactivity when my buttons are triggered and all of that. But I can learn, because I really want him to come forward and feel safe. I see how much of an impact I have on that space between. And so to just allow to support him. And my big question to him right now is, what do you want? How can I be your biggest cheerleader? What would that look like? Is it us doing our coaching together? Is it you doing your own thing? And he loves being in the support role. He makes a mean cup of coffee. I can't wait for us all to get together and check it. I was trying to tell him about your roasters and all of that, and just enjoy life. He's down there right now. I'm going to start crying. He's making a cake with my 11-year-old for our 15-year-old who's coming back. We're finally going to get to celebrate his birthday. He's been away on a debate tournament, and they love to be in the kitchen cooking and doing that nurturing thing. And I'm much more comfortable working on a Sunday, sitting on a computer doing this. So breaking free of those old roles that I grew up with, those stereotypical roles. And so we're having our little love fest here, but I want to get to our last question before we move on. And that to the last question is, how do you deepen connection? If you would be willing to share any rituals that you have or any experiences that you do to help. You've already kind of hinted at some, but if I could hear from each of you, I would love that.
Man, my head just went to the gutter. I'm sorry. I just had all kind of visions.
Oh, go for it. You can talk about whatever you want on this show.
Tongue is really talented.
Wait a minute. I don't think the audio came on. Can I get that one more time? Did you say his tongue is really talented? Oh, Charlie.
Y'all, excuse me a second.
Oh, I love it. Oh, thank you.
I want to be real honest here. For me, the connection is just when he shares his feelings.
Yeah.
I'm always sharing my feelings, and that was something I had to learn. Okay, I had to let my walls down. But in our society, men, they just put the walls up. They're like, this is strength, this is power. And when he has the courage to get vulnerable, and because courage is such a powerful thing, and that's really what it is courage when he lets down his walls. And when he gets vulnerable and he shares his heart with me, and we have these deep conversations, because I tell you, like from that first date in the truck, you're going up to the farm, and we started having this deep conversation. That's what reeled me in, because it's the depth of the heart. We've all heard this, intimacy is into me, see.
Right.
Well, you got to get into you to see, but then you got to have the courage to be fully real with your partner. And that to me is where we keep deepening our connection. And then the second thing, what I would say, is playfulness, because we are very playful. We're always, he's a goofball. I mean, he's always dancing. He's brought that out in me. That has been the gift that he's given me so much joy in being playful, because he is the 5-year-old that never grew up, but yet he's got all this wisdom. So I got both, right? I got this wise old sage, and I got this 5-year-old who is full of life and never stops. And that to me is so key for the passion that we have for one another, because we're always laughing.
Yep. Wonderful. How about you, Charlie?
I think from my perspective, to deepen our relationship is to be present.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, there are so many things that tug on your everyday life, whether it's work or just whatever that it is. And, so when we're together and we're present and we share. And I think a tidbit here would be, there's also a book out there called, The 5 Love Languages. And so, to really capture her love language, whatever that may be for the listeners, I want to be a part of that, to give her a little bit of that back, because that's that really is who you are. You're made up of what needs you want and what you're able to give. That's what you're made up of. And so, I think it's really fantastic that you can get present and then connect. And I think I have to have a connection to my woman. There has to be a connection, and you want there to be a connection, and that connection is the home run. It's the Grand Slam home run.
Yeah. From that place, all things are possible. That place of presence, and the playfulness is so there too. Thank you for that reminder. I've been told that I can be a bit too serious at times. And yesterday when I was walking home after a beautiful sunset walk with my husband, I said, maybe tonight we can have a dance party, because that wasn't quite long enough of a walk. And he started dancing right then. And I was like, no, wait till later. It's like, why? Why not dance in the present moment with the sunset and the trees? And so thank you. Yeah.
Good for you for recognizing that.
What's that?
I said, good for you for recognizing that, because it's like being right there in that moment and doing it. I mean, we can be walking down the grocery store aisles, and if we feel like dancing, we're going to dance. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah. So that's the beauty of that.
Well, sounds like your husband's a very playful Renaissance man.
He is. I think you two would get along famously well, and I look forward to the day we can do that. So I'm going to extend that invite. I'm also going to extend an invite for our audience to get to know you better. Terri, you have a free gift that you can funnel them to?
Absolutely. I have an ebook. It's I have a lot of ebooks, but this one in particular is great for this community. It's called Spice It Up with Your Spouse: 5 Simple Steps for Creating Lasting, Passionate, and Intimate Love in Spite of Having Kids Around. Because if you have ever been in, well, hopefully if you're in a relationship and you have kids, you know that as soon as you start having those kids, you lose it. You get caught up in your responsibilities. And even if you don't have kids, because it's not about the kids, it's just, I felt guided to write something for parents, because there's such a high divorce rate that when parents, they get so caught up in their children and they forget to love themselves, they lose that connection that we've been talking about. So it's about them reconnecting, even though the kids are there, because we blended 3 teenage girls, if you can imagine, and who all the 3 girls had lost a parent. So it was pretty interesting. So to be able to have this kind of connection in spite of all of that, all the tools that I feel are key to creating the kind of relationship we have are in the ebook. It's very simple to read. So you can get it at terribritt.com/spice. Yeah. And we'll have that link below in the daily email to make it super easy for our listeners. And I am just loving this. I feel like I could spend all afternoon with you, but in honor of our time, I'm going to say thank you. Mahalo nui loa. Great big thanks to you. And we'll let you say goodbye to our audience. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you so much for giving us this time and letting us share our voices with you, because that's such a gift to be able to have you listen and take it in, and hopefully it's made a difference. It's been my honor today to share what we have. Yeah. Blessings. Thank you so much.